Together, of course, is a horror movie that came out recently to some actually pretty good reviews. Of course, the main ones that being 3.6 out of 5 by Letterboxd, 6.9 out of 10 by IMDb, and that's not the kind of the important one. The important one is that being Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes has it 97% by the people and 78% by my bad 97% by the critics and 78% by the people. What I think of the movie. Okay, so first of all, they marketing it as the best horror movie of the year. They're lying. Okay, I'm not saying it's a bad movie. Here's the thing. If you're going into the obviously this is a different type of horror, right? But if you're going for the horror like scary and all that stuff, like your typical I don't know slasher, I guess you could say, or a Smile 2, it's not. It has some spooky things, but it's more jump scares more than anything. So it doesn't really leave you with anything to think about, right? But it's more about a story and it's more about a body horror. Like I'm not gonna show it on screen, obviously, because some people are probably eating while watching this. But the walrus, you probably know what I'm talking about, right? So the briefs, obviously, spoiler alert for the movie. Although it will be spoilers, I will hopefully keep it as spoiler-free spoilers as it could possibly get. So obviously, some people who still want to watch, even though they haven't watched it, something for them, right? But besides that, the main story is, of course, Tim and Millie take a plunge, as they say, to the outskirts of basically the middle of nowhere in the woods, because Millie is pursuing her dream of educating the youth, but unlike the other ones, like she genuinely cares about the kids, right? Because teachers nowadays, they just give us a freaking pecky, yo, right? But they go hiking and then they encounter a little abandoned, not even abandoned church. It's a church, but it fell through the floor, right? And then there's this pool of water. They take a drink from it, and afterwards, a lot of nasty things start to happen, which we'll get into later. And obviously, Tim is the one that's starting to piece the thing together. Obviously, that there's something weird going on, right? Obviously, and Millie's kind of more dismissive. Right? Like, you're crazy, right? You're freaking out over nothing. It's anxiety, right? But obviously, with the thing called Together, the body horror is they literally start becoming together. There are certain scenes where they start sticking to each other, start morphing into themselves, and the noises and the visuals. It's a little nasty. I'll admit it. It's a little nasty. But the main point is, unfortunately, if you're going this for the body horror and the just horror in general, unfortunately, this is probably not the movie you would be expecting, because although there are some nasty parts, obviously with being body horror, it does really good job with it. Obviously, that's probably the main selling point. But it's more about the relationship between Tim and Millie, and how Millie still is believing. They're both still believing in a fantasy. Tim still believes that he could be a musician, a rock star, even though he's 35 with no driver's license, right? And Millie still believes that Tim is still the same old Tim that, since still the same old Tim, right? The first time they met, he's exactly the same, right? Obviously, both technically living in a fantasy, and as the story progresses, the fantasy, obviously starts to show cracks and they're not doing too good, right? And there are some creepy scenes, but the main problem with it, which is probably not their fault, but is technically their fault, they're pretty funny. They're pretty funny. They don't let the scenes draw out, if that makes any sense. There's some things where it's nasty and grotesque and sometimes even scary, but the scene is instantly cut off with a joke with the next scene, and it's funny. It seems it's not in the realm of parody, but it's like it doesn't know what it wants to be, right? Because there's some scenes where you could see the vision that they want in terms of the horror aspect, but they like quit halfway through. Like they have it right there. They're at the goal line and they don't go. They go for something else, and it happens throughout the movie. And you could see it too. You could see some element. You think, oh man, this is gonna get crazy, and then they like chicken out halfway through. And the cult, which is what the church is for, right? The cult that believes in something Plato said, the fact that humans were born with four limbs, right? Four arms and four legs and two faces. But of course, Zeus said that he feared the power of the humans, so he split them in two, forever dooming them to search for their other half. Pretty much quote that they say, right? And that's what happens with the water. When you consume the water, you do a ritual, which then you become one with your partner, which we are shown with a character who got together with his husband. And that's a perfect match, obviously. But throughout the movie, there's a talk about a couple that went missing in the woods, and of course, unfortunately for them, they touched the water, and they ended up becoming together. Unfortunately for them, it was not so perfect, and that is a very creepy scene, nasty. Weirdly enough, I didn't feel that grotesque. I didn't feel that, queasy to it. It didn't seem that bad. But I later realized it's probably because of this dumb, Capri Sun commercial that they had. And it's basically the exact same thing. So when I saw it, it just reminded me of that dumb commercial. Which kind of ended, the immersion I had with the movie. Is that dumb juice commercial, man? Right? But, obviously, Tim and Millie have to decide whether to part ways or become together. I'm not going to spoil the end. Obviously, I think I said too much. But yeah. The main selling point is the body horror, and if you're going for the body horror, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. If you're going for the scares, the thrills, you will leave probably disappointed. If you're going for a sweet story of relationships and expectations, I don't know, probably. I think you'll like the movie. I give it a 7.5 because it has some really good things going for it, obviously being the humor and the body horror. The difference is they don't give each section its own space. The comedy sometimes even comes after the body horror, and it doesn't let you sit with the image in your head because it's instantly jokes and all that stuff. I'm not saying it's not funny. It's funny. I laughed. The theater laughed. They liked it. This is just more my personal opinion. I kind of wanted more time in between genres. I think it's called genres, but different tones. The time between different tones. They need to let things, sit. You don't have to constantly. You don't have to go to the next scene so quickly, right? But you could see the vision. That's the thing. You could see the vision. You could see what they're trying to do. Unfortunately for it, I liked it, but for me it was kind of a mess. But would I recommend together? To be honest, if you're in a body horror, like I said, you'll leave content. You'll leave content. Is it the best horror movie of the year? Yes, only because I do believe this is the only horror movie I watched this year. So technically, it is. But besides that, yeah, that's Together. It's a weird movie, nasty. So probably don't eat anything before the movie. Good thing I didn't get popcorn. But matter of fact, I am gonna spoil the movie with this one little clip.
Who the fuck is this nigga, bro?
If you watch the movie, you probably got it, right? But besides that, yeah, that's the end of the review. Weird movie, enjoyable, but weird. But anyways, hope you enjoyed this review. Hope to catch you in the next one.